Hi friends, I hope all is well. Welcome to a new sketchbook session video. Besides showing my sketchbook practice, I like to film these sessions to encourage you to include sketchbooks in your own art practice. It's a great place to explore, practice, and play. The sketches that I create in this series are not finished artwork. Some of them are very simple. Sometimes I just need to jot down the design ideas so I can work on it later. In this video, I'm continuing to explore design ideas for my Abstract People series. I have so many ideas on how I want to create these abstract people. I want to put those ideas on paper so I can reference them when I'm creating future artwork. If you've watched my other videos in this series, you know that I've used paper to create the abstract people, either by creating a collage ground layer, then painting around it to create the shape of the people, or by creating each person separately with collage papers. For this series of sketches, I'm only using paint. I did use a pencil to make some marks on this sketch, but other than that, I'm only using many layers of acrylic paints. This sketch will have a muted color palette. I'll be using colors such as yellow oxide, celadon, and brown. I'm using Blick's matte acrylic paint and Paper Artsy Fresco Finish chalk acrylic paints because both have a matte finish. Matte acrylic paints help to keep the pages in the sketchbook from sticking together. I'm starting by making organic blob shapes. I'm aware that there'll be sections of this ground that will be covered by the solid paint color that will create the shapes of the abstract people. I still want to cover the whole surface with layers of paint to create the balanced design. I haven't drawn the outline of the people on the surface, so I don't know exactly what area will be visible after I paint the people. Now that the first layer of the ground is completed, I'm starting to bring in dark paint colors to add different elements and texture. I usually do this technique when monoprinting, where I put down paint, then use a cut credit card to scrape away some of the paint. I like the textural and pattern look it creates. Also, I like that you can see some of the paint underneath it. I'm continuing to scrape away paint with this next color, which is dark blue. This time I'm using the end of a paintbrush handle. One way to create transparency is to take one side of a gift card or some similar tool and drag the paint. You'll see me do this technique with another paint color as well. Here's the one other supply besides paint that I'm using. It's a 4B graphite pencil. I'm drawing very loose scribble marks over the surface. These marks help to add a nice detail against the painted surface. I'll add music while you watch me finish this ground layer. I'll come back when it's time to create the outline of the abstract people. I'm positioning the template closer to the top of the spread because I don't want too much of that solid paint color. In a previous video, I decided that I like the look of less solid paint and more of the ground layer showing. I like to draw the outline about 1/4 of an inch away from the template. This gives me some leeway to fine-tune the shape of each person with paint without any of the pencil lines showing. As always, I have a piece of shop towel to rest my hand. This helps to keep any oils that are on my hand from being transferred to the artwork, and it keeps from getting wet paint on my hand or avoiding smearing any paint that's not yet dried. I'm using one of my favorite brushes, which is a 3/8 inch angle brush, to apply the off-white paint around the outline. It's a good brush to apply paint around an outline because it gives a smooth finish. You can also use it to fill in larger areas as well. In the past, I painted this area so some of the ground layer was slightly showing through. This time I want an opaque application. I usually stop the sketch at this point, but I wanted to see what it would look like if I painted a dark, uneven line around the people. I chose a dark brown instead of black. Black would have been the obvious choice for a dark outline, so that's why I chose dark brown. Also, I thought dark brown would complement the muted colors of the ground layer. By the way, I'm using a size 8 long round brush from the Princeton Velveted series to apply the paint. Here's the completed sketch. I think the brown outline elevated the design. It made the people more distinct. It helps to give the illusion that the people are in the foreground and the off-white painted area is in the background. For this next sketch, I'm changing up the color palette and the shape of the abstract people. The ground layer will still have layers of acrylic paint, but it'll have a graffiti look to it. I'm starting by painting a washy layer of white and gray to loosely mimic the look of concrete. I'm not blending the two colors together too much because I want to have a visual contrast between both colors. This will help to define this layer once I start adding more colors on top. Before I add graffiti writing, I'm going to continue to add more layers of paint using different application methods to reinforce the messy look of this design. One of my favorite ways to mark a page is to use the end of a cardboard roll. I like the unevenness of the paint application when using this tool. Also, I like to make an uneven pattern. I think it's more visually pleasing than a uniform one. I'm using blue instead of black or a darker gray, so this layer will contrast to the one underneath it. Besides using a cardboard roll as is, I like to slightly pinch the sides a bit to make an oval shape. I'm using a green paint that is the same value as the blue paint. There is enough variation between the two colors and the two different shapes, so it's easy for the viewer to see the difference in this layer. But having the colors close in value will help the viewer to see these elements are on the same layer and separate it from the white and gray layer underneath it. Another way to create a graffiti paint layer is to add paint splatters. A way to think of this layer as graffiti is to think about the overspray when using a can of spray paint. I chose to use black paint because you can easily see the splatters. Also, it adds a slight contrast to the layers underneath it. Now that the splatter paint layer is done, I'm bringing out letters and number stencils to start adding what people usually think of as graffiti. I won't be using words yet. That will be the last layer. This first template has mid-sized letters and numbers, and I'll be using a light pink color. Next, I'll add larger letters and numbers in a darker color to add contrast. It's a reverse of how I would normally work. I would typically paint a dark color layer of large numbers and letters, then size down with a light color. I want to try this sequence to see how it would look visually. If I don't like how it looks, then I do the opposite if I recreate this design on canvas. I chose to have these two layers with letters and numbers and not words or significant dates because I want both layers to read visually as a pattern. I'm using a flat stencil brush because I get a better paint application when stenciling in a sketchbook. I'm stenciling around the surface in a balanced way, again knowing that some of it will be covered during the final paint layer. For this final layer, I decided to use a specific phrase. I've been thinking about this phrase, "be kind," for quite some time. I'm positioning the words in a way that'll be easy to read after I paint the abstract people. Using painter's tape helps to keep the individual stencils in place. I chose light pink for the word be and bright mid-tone green for the word kind. I wanted to try out one light color that I knew would contrast with the paint layers underneath it, and another color that is mid-tone so there won't be as much contrast. I wanted to visually see how the two different colors would look on this ground layer. I may decide to either use two different light colors or two different mid-tone colors if I create this design on canvas. Not sure until I see how both colors look. Here's the new template. I made it so it fit the size of the spread better than the previous template. The people shapes are more angular than the previous one, and each body shape is different. The heads are still round because I still want the heads to be easy to recognize. To match the graffiti theme, I decided to use matte black paint instead of off-white to paint the abstract people shape. It should add enough contrast. Since these body shapes are closer together, it wouldn't be easy for me to use only my favorite angle brush to apply the black paint. I'm using the size 8 long round brush to outline around the people instead, then fill in the rest of the area using the angle brush. Here's the completed sketch. I debated about adding a thin line around each person. They are positioned so closely together that I wasn't sure if it looked good. While I was creating the thumbnail for this video, I noticed that the first sketch with the outline, that the people were more pronounced than the second sketch without one. The what if question popped into my head. I decided to paint off camera a thin, uneven line around each person using the yellow-orange light paint. What if is a great question to ask yourself when working in a sketchbook. It leads you to explore, practice, and play. This is a long way to say that I like this sketch better with the outline. I hope you enjoyed this sketching session video. Again, I encourage you to include a sketchbook in your art practice. Thanks for watching. Take care.